It's time now for Jersey Shore Spotlight on WBNJ. Jersey Shore Spotlight is the weekly program that brings you closer to the people and places who shape our communities.
On this edition of Jersey Shore Spotlight, the interviewer becomes the interviewee. He has written a book called Employee to Entrepreneur, 5 Days That Changed My Life. His name is Bill Clinton Jr. He is the president and program director of WBNJ, my boss, and he joins us this morning to talk about this new book about how he changed from being one of those 9-to-5 security of a full-time job to the insecurity of being an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. The thing is that, you know, I think probably at an early age, I remember as a kid wanting to kind of explore different things, but I knew what the pattern was. I knew that the normal procedure was to go to school, get a job, maybe go back to school, get a better job, and something just never felt right with that for me. You know, it's what we're supposed to do. It's what everybody does.
Right. You know, your dad, your grandfather, your grandfather's father, they've all done the same thing. You go to a job, you work. But it kind of also shows how society has changed. Mm-hmm. And part of this equation is your wife, Natersia, because again, now in the 2000s, you have a number of multiple income households, whereas it used to be man goes to work, wife stays home, and this goes up until the 60s and 70s. You now have two-income households, and that also plays a role in this shift.
Well, yeah, without a doubt, because I attribute a lot of my success to the fact that we work together as a team. So, yeah, it's a multi-income and then multi-diversified income household. Because she launched her business in, she launched her business around the same time we launched the radio station. So in 2010, she launched her cleaning company with nothing more than a vacuum we got at a clearance at I think it was at Sears or JCPenney, one of the two. All right. And she started a business, but it was a start. But at that time, I still had that comfort of a 9-to-5 job, so we could experiment. But it was from her entrepreneurial tendencies to start her business that it laid the groundwork for what I was eventually able to accomplish by walking away from the job.
The book is called Employee to Entrepreneur, 5 Days That Changed My Life by Bill Clinton Jr. He is our guest on Jersey Shore Spotlight this morning. I'm Trip Rogers. Now, Bill, let's talk a little bit about this because, again, you are, first off, hit the basics. WBNJ has been your baby since 2010, or you've been part of WBNJ. You have two kids. One of them about to go to college at this point in your life. You also, I guess, your youngest was born right around the time you decided to go out on your own, which again has got to be really scary.
I'm not going to lie. It was very scary because I think no decision like this can be made without a certain level of fear. But yes, she was just over a year old. Yeah, she was just over a year old. She was born in 2012. 2013 is when I walked away from the job. So not only was I walking away from a job, but I also started to take on the role as Mr. Mom. In addition, because at the same time, Natersia's business starts taking off, and I'm starting a new business with a toddler. And that in itself had its own comedy.
Okay, but the advantage, though, of being your own boss or, being freelance and doing what you do, or your web design, and you're doing the radio station, I mean, the advantage is you can do a lot of this work from home if you have to.
Oh, yeah. I actually had some occasions where I was able to do this work from the playground. I kid you not. That is the joys of having Wi-Fi access wherever we go. If I can bring my computer with me, people used to say, well, do you need to be in the office to get... No, I don't. My office is wherever my laptop is.
The idea of the book talks about the 5 days that changed your life. So give us a synopsis. What were those 5 days, and was it a revelation?
It was. And this is I love explaining this because it's kind of comical in a way, because it was so childish yet so profound at the same time. Okay, so it's August of 2013. I decided to take a vacation. Prior to the vacation, I am not exactly sure where I should go with my employment. I was honestly just ready to start asking for more money from the company, not leave the company. So I went on vacation and I said to myself, well, let's have some fun. The radio station was already off the ground. We had an office here that I could work out of. So I said, I'm going to play a little game with myself. I'm going to pretend for 5 days that I don't have a job to go back to, and pretend over those 5 days that I'm already an entrepreneur. And out of that, I was able to gather leads. I was able to make connections. I sat down and really, by the 4th day of that week, I knew what my decision was going to be. And what was really cool about it was, the day would start with me going into the office, make myself a cup of coffee like I would as if I was I played the game up. And then I would see what's trending, and I'd get on and read a couple blog posts, see what's trending, make a few phone calls. And I had a lot of lunch meetings with people that week and didn't even think about that the following Monday I had to go back to work. By Friday of that week, after much discussion with Natercia, but I didn't just leave it there, because she is a big factor in a lot of my decisions, but I also put a lot of faith and concern into the opinion of my parents. So I had a long discussion with my dad and said, Dad, this is what I can do, and I want to make a leap. And my parents have always been very supportive of everything I've wanted to do. They said, well, if you're going to do it, then do it. And then I also grabbed the ear of Bob Wick, who's my spiritual mentor. And, at the time, he had just left or got let go from the transition of NJN over to what it is now. Mm-hmm. So he had just kind of left that job and was now on his own as well. And he and I had some really interesting discussions, but it came down to having faith that, we weren't going to fall, and having faith in God and just in our abilities. So all these different things compounded together that by the time I went to work on Monday morning, I knew exactly what I had to do.
He is the president and program director of WBNJ. He also has written the book, Employee to Entrepreneur, 5 Days That Changed My Life. He is Bill Clayton Jr. I'm Trip Rogers. This is Jersey Shore Spotlight on 91.9 WBNJ. Now, in the years since you made this decision, are there any decisions that you've made that you have regretted, aside from hiring me to work at WBNJ?
Well, as a matter of fact, there were a few that I regretted, but with every mistake, it's an opportunity to learn. And that's the way I eventually had to turn this. Early on in the start of WWN Interactive, which was my side company that my partner Tara and I had started, just after I left the job, we took on a job that was way outside of the scope of our abilities. Mm-hmm. And we learned a huge lesson about communicating better with a client. We learned what it's like to receive a important legal document in the mail that says cease and desist. We got the, in essence, our heads handed to us. But you know what? We picked them back up, and we were able to learn from it. So I regret the dark time of the several months I wasted working on that particular project, and it's all detailed in the book a little more in detail as to what that project was. But that's one that I regret, and on other things I regret not starting sooner. Interesting. Now, one thing that I've known you forever. I've known your family forever. We go back a long, long way.
one thing about being an entrepreneur, you are a jack of all trades, master of none. and is that something that really, because let's face it, you're being pulled in a bunch of different directions, and you have a young daughter who, Daddy, right now, sorry, not waiting. Whereas your son, who's a little older, and your wife would understand that.
Well, yes, I do get that, and I've learned patience is truly a virtue of a entrepreneurial stay-at-home dad. I don't like necessarily use the term stay-at-home dad. I like entrepreneurial dad, because I take her with me to meetings and stuff. But yes, she is demanding, especially as she approached 5. I think perhaps I've given her too many liberties where she honestly thinks that she is my secretary. If you ask her who my secretary is, she will tell you it is her. She starts out the day by saying, Daddy, what's on our list for today? And starts going down the list of what's on my schedule for the day. So my 5-year-old is keeping me in check. But going back to what you're saying, jack of all trades, master, it does get a little monotonous at times. And you, of all people, know you've seen me in those moments where I'm like, hold on, I got this, I'll get it. Just give me a moment, I'll get there. But I think that everything will eventually line up to where it needs to be. And I think at the start of any entrepreneurial career, it ends up being a lot of work up front. I follow a guy, Gary Vaynerchuk, and he's a entrepreneur who took over his family business and grew it to be $1 million business. He's a well-known name now in the entrepreneurial world. And one of the statements he made, I love this. Now, of course, he used some other colorful vernacular in this. However, basically you eat crap for 24 months so that in the third year you can eat caviar.
Okay, all right.
And that's pretty much the way I look at this. It's going to be a lot of hard work and beating myself up at the start of everything. But eventually there's going to be this time where it's easy.
Jersey Shore Spotlight. We're talking to Bill Clanton Jr., who has written the book Employee to Entrepreneurs, 5 Days That Changed My Life, talking about the many things. And one of the things that you have done and that you do, and we again, that's part of the connection we have, is this radio station, WBNJ. Signed on 7 years ago. What has surprised you about WBNJ and that aspect of your life?
Well, I used to think of this music as just my music I used to listen to. But so the music is one thing. I never expected the response to the music that we get. But also, I did not expect the community connection that the station has developed and the relationship the community has with our voices on the station and how much the community wants to hear those voices in an age where radio is being replaced by live streaming, Spotify, Pandora, whatever. Everybody has their own thing. They're listening to their iPod, whatever. But when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, a majority of the audience still wants to hear that human connection, and that's something I did not expect.
But we've had this discussion before. That's what radio is about, and that's why local radio will never go away. And I think that's one of the things WBNJ. I mean, this is an example of it right now. We're talking about radio. We're talking about a job. Again, you do a lot of different things. One of the other things I want to touch on is the fact that you are now the president of the Barnegat-Waretown Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, a
role that you took on. Reluctantly, as we have said. And again, as a entrepreneur, you're scrambling with a couple of things going on, your family, and I'll take over. I'm going to be the president of the Chamber of Commerce. That has to have its own headaches with it.
It does, because of my lack of experience in that area. It was definitely a baptism by fire. And at first, I was petrified of the position. I'll be honest. It petrified me to have so many people expecting so much of me, and I didn't even know what I was doing. when I first took the position. But the position was open to me. It was offered to me. I took it, like you said, reluctantly. But now I'm several months into it. I feel I finally hit my stride, and now I've been able to